Oregon. They basically are run by a couple of Japanese guys. They feed a very strict Japanese diet to replicate the Japanese Wagyu beef.
Awesome.
And we get incredible quality at an incredible cost. So it's great for us. So that's one of the things that I'm excited to work with. And part of the Japanese culture as well is, and over the last 5 years, I would say that Wagyu has kind of exploded in the United States. And it was maybe if you go back 10 or more years, it was only a very exclusive piece of meat where you have to import it from Japan and it costs so much money, right? Now we're seeing a lot more. Seeing domestic farms here, seeing a lot more importing from Japan, and just the demand for it is really high. And it's great because people are starting to catch on to what it was. And before, when I was doing my high-end restaurant and I was serving Wagyu beef, then people didn't know what it was back then. So that's kind of cool to see. But also I'm really excited about Los Angeles because I'm from Chicago, where the weather's not always so great and the produce, often comes from California. So
now you're right there.
To be able to get it directly from the farms and be able to hand select those products when they're in season is something that's really exciting as a chef. Because,
So is it open already or no? It's opening.
Opening shortly. I would say. I can't give you a time.
I mean, you know how that is with restaurants.
So a restaurant, I've opened a lot of restaurants in my career, and they've never really opened on time. So.
There's a lot to it. That's for sure.
Well, and there's a lot that's like not in your control as well.
Really. So basically you grew up your whole life, right? You've been around the culture, obviously, you're Japanese and cooking.
So my father actually, he worked for United Airlines, and because of his work, we got free airfare as a kid, and so on all of our vacations we would be traveling, and his big hobby was eating food and learning about different food cultures, and so I have a lot of influence from that as well, not just with the Japanese cooking, but my mom always did the Japanese cooking, but my dad, he wasn't professional, but he was really...
He's definitely curious about culinary and other...
Exactly. And he loved experimenting with different flavors from all the countries.
And he would cook for you, right?
He would cook for us all the time, And we very rarely actually went to eat out at restaurants unless we were traveling.
Right.
So we'd travel, we'd taste different cuisines, and then he'd try to replicate it at home.
That's great.
That's interesting that you said that, how it influenced you, and then you took this career path as a chef.
So initially, actually, I went into business at the University of Iowa, and I didn't really have a clear direction, but one of the things that I really loved doing there is I had this work-study position, following a chef around and helping with events, and that's kind of was my first taste professionally of the professional kitchen. And after that summer, I decided to enroll in culinary school and take it more seriously. But the business was always a good backbone, and I always went back to that. When I opened my first restaurant, I wrote a business plan and brought it to the bank.
There you go.
And the first bank was like, "No, sorry, we're not interested, kid." I was 26 years old at the time. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's kind of what I expected, but give me a few pointers on how I can improve my plan and my pitch. What didn't you like about it? And so they helped me out. I improved it. So I took it to the next banker, and he was like, "Yeah, it's okay, but we're not really interested in doing restaurants." And then I got some more tips from him, and after about 4 banks, somebody said yes. So.
There you go. So your persistence paid off.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
But we've talked to a lot of different chefs, but there seems to be a common thread. Do you believe that having some type of business background is necessary in this?
Well,
If you're opening a restaurant, if you're going forward in that kind of venue?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's essential if you have someone that is filling that role for you. So what's really intriguing about the restaurant business is that, and the reason why it's so difficult, I believe, because it takes so many different skill sets.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there are
Very
things that you don't even think about, right? There's not only most people think of restaurant and it's about the food, but food is actually it's a very important part, but it's still a small part of the operation, right? There is the management of the people, which is really important, right? That's one of the most important things in a restaurant is you're dealing with people all day, not only from your employees in the kitchen in the front of the house, but your guests that are coming in the door. And it's a lot to manage, so there has to be that skill. So there's the artistic side of the food, there's the management side, and then there's the numbers side with controlling the labor costs and the food costs. And not only that, but then there's the marketing side, right? And how do you get your word out there? And then there's an aspect of psychology, because you have to really get into the mind of your guests and what they're thinking of how, how are they thinking about what you're presenting to them. And I think the best concepts really understand the people and the demographic that are coming through their door, and putting that all together is usually not one person, right?
Yeah, it's a team.
It's a team. It's
Teamwork.
almost always not one person.
Right.
So, I think if you have that team and you can combine all these different skill sets, then I think you can be very successful that way. But obviously, the more you have experience in all those different aspects, it's helpful. So, but for me, it's always been. I've always been a chef, but I've been interested in all these other disciplines that kind of make up the
I think it takes all those skills. We've talked to many chefs of all different. We talked to Michelin chefs in Europe, and not just Michelin, James Beard chefs, and pretty much most of them say the same thing. I mean, it takes a team effort, especially now. I think now in modern times, the social media aspect a lot more. That's just one more thing, and I know you're very good at that. You just had a viral thing on social media about the A5, I think, the Wagyu I read about. So it's very important now. I think that's another aspect. One more thing that you have to be concerned about is that comes underneath the marketing umbrella, but social media is also important. Also do interviews and get yourself out there with TV and social media. So just one more thing.
Good PR team.
Yeah, good PR team.
So what do you think are some of the top challenges going forward in the restaurant business, opening another one, post-COVID? Like, what do you see?
Well, I think everybody is kind of the same. I mean, it's labor. It's I think that's kind of you've heard it.
Yeah.
You've heard us say it for the last few years now. Even I think even a little bit before COVID, it was trending in that the labor market was getting really tight, and then after COVID, it's an opportunity for a lot of people, I think, to career change, or just because the restaurant industry got hit so hard that people were forced to look for something else, and then they got comfortable in their new jobs where it might be a little bit better pay and easier work. Yeah. And I don't blame them for that. But
No, you can't blame them.
But I think that's labor is still very difficult. And just picking the right people in this labor market. What else is really difficult? I mean, it's always a challenge opening different restaurants.